A wonderful good morning to you, wherever you are. Grenada, Carrick, Repeating Monty, the rest of the Eastern Caribbean. It is just about 8 minutes gone past the hour of 9 o'clock in the morning time. Welcome to The Point for today, the 9th day of the month of November. Indeed, it's a pleasure being here with you. I'm Joseph Cadore, and I say thank you for our viewers and our listeners that have joined us. Those also joining us via the social media platforms, be it Facebook or YouTube, or those on the World Wide Web at www.gbn.gd. It is Tuesday morning, and a pleasant good morning to you. And we want to say thanks for being part of this broadcast. For To The Point, again, we want to first apologize. As I intimated earlier, based on our program and schedule on Tuesdays, we do accommodate a representative from the National Democratic Congress. But unfortunately, they are not able to join us this morning. And as such, we have made alternative arrangements, and certainly we do say thanks for being part of it. Hopefully they would be with us next week on this platform. We are going to be continuing a conversation that we started this morning on diabetes as it is, its impact, and how it has come to affect our lives. And I know it isn't a conversation that you can have too many times, but certainly we can well appreciate that it is one that we need to, not if we should, but we need to continue to have that conversation at all time. And my guest this morning is going to be Antonia Sandy Antoine, who's a representative of the Diabetes Association, and she's also a former nurse, so certainly she's well equipped to talk about the management of the disease, some of the myths and the concerns regarding living with diabetes, which we've highlighted isn't in any way, form, or fashion a death sentence, but certainly is a call for us as a nation, not just in matters specific to diabetes, but all other diseases, whether it is hypertension, cancer, whatever it is. It's certainly, you can well appreciate that we all have to play our part in changing our lifestyles and doing things differently. You know, they said doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is indeed what is referred to as total lunacy. We're not anywhere close. In the midst of COVID-19, we continue to do what we have to do. So that conversation comes up next on To The Point, and we certainly hope that you'll be able to be here to engage, ask your questions as we continue to address this scourge. Yes, it's a health scourge that has certainly come to overtake our country. That's the conversation that comes up next on To The Point, right here on Classic and GBN Television. We take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back as we entertain our guest, Mrs. Antonia Sandy Antoine.
Stop the spread of germs that can make you and others sick. Cover your nose and mouth with a tissue when you cough or sneeze. If you don't have a tissue, use your elbow. Wash hands often, especially after coughing or sneezing into a tissue.
This is a message from the Ministry of Health. If you or a family member suspect that you may have contracted COVID-19 and are displaying symptoms, please immediately self-isolate at home. This means that you must also avoid all contact with other members of your household. Do not visit hospitals or health centers, as this creates the potential for further spread of the virus, and it puts additional persons at risk when you come into contact with them. Your best course of action is to call the COVID-19 hotline at 458-4787 or 538-4787, or contact your nearest health center or medical station. Once your information has been received, health officials will come to you. Help prevent the spread of COVID-19. This has been a message from the Ministry of Health.
Looking for that injection of vibes and energy, of course? Well, I've got just that. Hi, my name is Gary, Mr. Smooth, and I'm inviting you to join me on the Hot Morning Show on Hot 98.5, 98.7 FM. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 10 in the morning. I've got a healthy dose of your favorite and most infectious hits sampled with information, news, laughter, and all the other ingredients that go into making the hottest morning show on the radio. The Morning Heat. And while you're at it, don't forget to hit us up on WhatsApp, 435-7517. We've got topics, we've got discussions, calls, voice notes, and so much more. But I can't tell you everything. You gotta tune in. The Hot Morning Show on Hot FM 98.5, 98.7 with yours truly, Gary, Mr. Smooth. Kaboom!
GBN Television News at 7, a pulse on all things Grenadian. Look out for our new features through expanded synergies with our media partners in Barbados, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Trinidad, and beyond. Capturing the latest in news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Credible, informative. Thank you for making us number one. News at 7, live, Monday to Friday on GBN Television, Channel 7 and 11. K105.5 and 105.9, Hot 98.5 and 98.7, GBN Television Facebook page and YouTube channel, and www.gbn.gd. GBN, with you anywhere and everywhere.
Feel good facts.
Help prevent cold and flu by washing your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. That's the time it takes to remove most germs. No soap and water? No worries when you've got alcohol-based hand sanitizer.
So thank you again and welcome to our viewers. Lady Antoine, good morning and welcome to you again. I did say it's a conversation that we will continue to have, and certainly here we are. And there's so much that we can talk about when it comes to diabetes. But I want us to start as we get into the conversation. If we can, allow me, if you may, as a representative of the Diabetes Association and a qualified health practitioner, which is by your nurse by training, what is diabetes, really and truly? When we talk about it, what are we really and truly referring to?
Good morning to my host, and thank you for having me back. The question is asked, what is diabetes? Diabetes is an autoimmune metabolic disease where the body doesn't manage sugar as it should. And it could be because of one or more reasons. There is such a thing called type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is when that organ in the body called the pancreas does not produce insulin or produce very little insulin, and it's not enough to help metabolize the carbohydrates that we take in. Type 2 diabetes is when the body is resistive to insulin and the blood sugar just builds up in the blood instead of getting into the bloodstream. Also, during pregnancy, there is gestational diabetes, and it develops just during pregnancy. And once the pregnancy is aborted or is over with, then it resolves itself.
Right.
The only thing is, persons with gestational diabetes most times are likely to develop type 2 diabetes afterwards. So, to answer your question, we take in glucose, we take in sugar, we take in carbohydrates. That's converted into glucose and eventually into energy that the cells need.
Right.
With diabetes, the sugar stays in the blood and it doesn't enter the bloodstream. And that's when, if we stick our finger, we will get a high reading. There is such a thing as normal blood sugar.
Okay.
Depending on your reference, like the American Heart Association, they will tell you normal blood sugar limits is between 70 to 100. Fasting, anything above that, puts you in a different category.
Okay.
So we want to stay within the 70 to 100. There is such a thing as pre-diabetes. When the numbers goes over that and remains between like 100 and 125, we say that you're in the pre-diabetic phase. And that's when people can really catch themselves, to be colloquial, and say, well, listen, something is happening here. Let me make a drastic change. And I, for some reason, as I said, I live abroad too long, so a lot of things are not private anymore. Let me share an experience with you. In coming back, I used to sit and eat 12 Julie mango one time, 12 Ceylon mango one time.
A real Caribbean woman.
And before you know it, that stepped in. And it lasted for about 3 months. And I said, wait a minute, Antonia, just take stock of yourself. You're going to have to enjoy those mangoes in a different way. And as such, I just made that change. And that was the end of that. So to answer your question, diabetes is a situation where the body does not metabolize sugar and carbohydrates the way it should to turn it into energy to feed the cells.
You talked about the consuming that large volume of mangoes, and I know you said it, and while it may sound comical to the ear, that it is a disposition that all of us at some point in time, and I know I'm saying all of us, maybe we haven't done 12, but I know most of us as Grenadians, we've sat down and we've had at least at one point in time in our lives where we suck at these 3 or 4 mangoes one after the other. We've done that. How much does culture, way of life, and our choice of food, how much of a factor does it play in what we now know as being a chronic health situation as it relates to diabetes and other health conditions?
Let me put it simply. Our consumption of food, the volume of food that we consume, is way above most times what we need. You see, there was a time when the older people ate large portions of food and still remain healthy, but the activity level was enough to compensate. In our situation now, we eat late, we eat any old time, and then we think it's okay. If you're going to eat your biggest meal at 8, 9 p.m. at night and go to bed, what are you doing? You're going to pile on the pounds. It's likely that's going to expose you to diabetes. So we have to make that shift. So I would say that we need, as a people, to recognize that we are not as active as we used to be. And as such, tailor your portions to accommodate your lifestyle. And that's not being done. People would say, it's my life to live, I live it the way I want. But is that conducive to health? It's really not. Does that answer your question?
The fig, the blugger, the dashings, the breadfruit. We've all been told that is a healthier way to go. And so for us, it's what we do. We talk about, and this morning we highlighted the fact that managing diabetes is a critical component to getting it under control. But when you say management of the disease, what exactly are you referring to?
I'm referring to there are certain changes one may have to make in order to reach that goal of success. Meaning that, let's just say I'm being diagnosed as a diabetic. I would expect my medical practitioner or my district nurse to sit with me and dialogue to find out where I'm coming from, what my lifestyle is like. Okay, so if I were to say to my district nurse, I have 2 cups of cocoa every morning and 5 grains of banana and a slice of breadfruit, what do I expect her to say to me? Miss Antoine, you got to make that change. I know you like your food, but we have to make that change. Nobody's saying don't eat these things, because bear in mind, these ground provisions is filled with a lot of nutrients, potassium, magnesium. It's not only starch. Some people get the impression that's all there is in ground provision, and it's really a fallacy. So I would say in the management of diabetes, you have to watch your portions. You have to find that right balance. No longer can you just sit and eat a bowl of rice and say it's okay. Why not garnish it with some okras? Why not garnish it with some split peas? Split peas is very inexpensive. People talk a lot about cost of living is high, and I agree, but there are certain things we can do to amend some situations, like peas and beans, and so they are very inexpensive. When I cook these days, I don't say I'm cooking rice and peas. I would say I'm cooking peas and rice.
Okay.
In other words, I'm increasing my portion of rice. I'm putting lots of peas with that rice. Again, we have to choose brown rice. Why brown rice? Because it's alleged that there is more fiber in brown rice, and that could help reduce your blood sugar level. Little things like that. So your portions. You get up in the morning, you're older, you ache. I have to say it as it is. I walk in my neighborhood every morning. And do you know who I meet every morning I walk? A 99-year-old woman. And I have to say her name, Dr. Major's mother. Most times she's ahead of me. She's 99. And she would say, cuz, if I don't do this, I'll be crippled.
Right.
I have to make the effort. And she does it graciously. So in other words, then we have to set our mind and our goal and just get that goal accomplished. But as I said before, we pick up that laissez-faire, lackadaisical attitude, everything goes, anything goes, and there are consequences. I use that word a lot. You go to the hospital and you complain, but again, the question is asked, what are you doing to help yourself? There was a time when you must go to the medical station to get your shot as a diabetic. No. You have your machine at home now. The nurse would teach you how to do your insulin. The doctor would prescribe the dosages. You get up every morning, you stick your finger before you eat. You take your medication accordingly. Some people have the tendency to stick their finger, eat, and take the medication 4 hours after. That's a little counterproductive. You either have to take the medication just before you eat, soon after you eat, or right as you're eating. So these are the little changes that we have to make. Sometimes as professionals, we give information in such a hypothetical way that we lose our clients, that we lose our patients, that when I say lose them, we mislead them because they go home not really understanding what we were trying to tell them. So we really have to break it down. Miss Jean, you told me you eat 3 bananas. Miss Jean, how about 1.5 and a glass of milk? And before you do that, how about taking a walk? Well, I cannot go down the steps. Do you have to go down the steps to walk in your bedroom? Walk around your bed 5, 6, 10 times. Lift your arm up in the air 10 times. Across 10 times. Little things like that. Stomp your feet a couple times a day as you sit on the couch. And that's exercise. Do what you can, but the whole idea is to not get complacent.
Do not get complacent.
And that's the problem that we have.
I'm assuming as part of that process, it requires one to be much more observant of the changes that takes place in one's body. we all subscribe to the notion that we adopt preventative measures. Well, and that is important. But what are some of the telltale signs that one should look for, or that would indicate to somebody, you know what, maybe this is my conditions. Speak to us, Miss Antoine, about some of those signs and symptoms.
Okay, leaving off the textbook definition or what the textbook tells you. What persons with diabetes would tell me is, I realized that I was just losing weight and I wasn't feeling myself. And I was constantly drinking, just very thirsty. And my sight got so blurred after a while that I was just losing focus and I couldn't concentrate. So thirst is a big thing. Urinating a lot is another big thing. And it doesn't matter how much you eat, you're still hungry. You're still thirsty. It doesn't matter how much you drink. You're still hungry. You're still thirsty. What I'm saying to people is recognize that shift. You do not even have to have a high school education to realize that something is different with my body. And that's what we are telling people. If you wake up in the morning and you realize for the past 2 weeks, something is different in my body, just tell the doctor that. When you get to him, he's going to say, what is different? Well, I'm a little more malaise. I'm listless. I don't have the energy I used to have. Mm-hmm. Then he would maybe run a battery of tests and maybe do a good head-to-toe assessment and find out what's going on. But sometimes we don't give ourselves that privilege. So I am saying to persons, like yourself. And for the people who live with them, like the people around you. And make observation. Usually they would say, my sister and I are like, we would meet people and say, come on, I want to talk to you. What's going on? I see your legs are swollen. Why your eyes look so red? Just right. Dialogue. I mean, sometimes I get cussed out. But a lot of times the people would come back to me and say, you made a good observation. Like during the last health fair, we made such an observation that we were able to get that person to go back to the doctor and get treated. And I tried to do follow-up, and that person said to me, you know what? I am so grateful that I attended that health fair, because there was I neglecting myself, and I know better. So sometimes we all need that push. That's another thing we're failing to realize. Uh-huh. When you first diagnosed with the illness, you're saying you're going to that denial phase. You're telling yourself that it's not happening to me. It can be me. But after that phase, you should move on. Wait a minute, something is happening. I just have to accept what's happened. Another thing is some people are on oral medication by mouth. And if it's not effective and they have to switch to insulin, they go into a depression.
Why so though?
Acceptance again. Acceptance. But wait a minute. I'm going to be sticking myself every morning? Yes, you will, because that's your life right now. So this is why I keep emphasizing acceptance. I used to tell myself, well, Lord, if I get diabetes, how am I going to stick my finger? But during my pre-diabetes phase, I had to do it. And it came like clockwork. So right. In other words, then, you have to condition your mind in whatever you do. And there is a song, Keep Moving. Keep moving is a good thing. Because when Miss Davis texted me a while ago to come back on air, I was just undressing to go to the beach. So you guys are lucky.
Blessed.
So you got to move. I am retired, so I take advantage of the luxury that I didn't have time to do before. And I, even during my busy period as an individual, I still find time to do what I have to do. You couldn't live in that.
Let me ask you though, can diabetes be reversed? And it's a conversation that you hear, a question being asked and different. Can the disease be reversed?
To my knowledge, type 1 diabetes cannot be reversed. Things can improve a little bit, again, based on management. And the reason being, it's a situation with your organ, the pancreas, the beta cells in your pancreas is not producing the insulin that help metabolize glucose, or it's not making enough. So it's very difficult to sit here and tell you, yes, type 1 diabetes can be reversed. Type 2 diabetes, though, it's highly likely that type 2 diabetes can be reversed. But again, depending on the severity of it, some people have diabetes and their numbers never go over 200. But if you get into a rigorous program and get serious about it, yes, the answer is it can be reversed. If you say to yourself, listen, I have to eat smaller portions, I am going to take my medication as scheduled, I will visit my MD and get the information I need to help me take myself to that level. Yes, the answer is type 2 diabetes can be reversed. But again, you have to get your mind and tell yourself, I can do this. And even though it's not reversed, it would improve. Your numbers wouldn't be as high, because the higher numbers, the more predisposed you are to the complications of diabetes.
How much, Ms. Antoine, has the increased consumption of processed foods, how much has it added to the equation, the complication that exists in treating and monitoring and managing the complication?
Let me put it simply, it's a killer. It's a killer in the sense that it doesn't contain the nutrients that our ground provision, and so the ground provisions, it doesn't have the same components that the ground provisions and so have. It's more laden with starch. But let's just say you feel for some pasta. You can do spaghetti with broccoli. You can do spaghetti with pumpkin. Pumpkin is very common now. Pumpkin is very inexpensive. Make a nice spaghetti dish and laden it with pumpkin or laden it with okra. But if you were to sit down and just eat this plain spaghetti like this, and then when you're done, you just go into the chair and fall asleep, that can work. And again, I keep saying, if we follow a healthy lifestyle and a healthy hard diet, it's very similar to a controlled carb diet. So in other words then, even if you don't have diabetes and you want to remain healthy, you have to do certain things to remain healthy. Watch what you eat, not enough saturated fats. Look at the oils that we buy. It's alleged that olive oil and coconut oils are the better oils to use versus, there's one that's very common, soya oil. So then we have to learn to read labels. If you see something that's high in saturated fat, you may want to avoid it. Unsaturated fat is the better way to go. I am so happy that pork and beef got to $10 a pound, so we can buy it.
Christmas is coming.
we are better off. We are better off sticking. I'm telling you, we are $10 for a pound of pork and beef. You know, we are better off sticking to our little fish. Listen, net cast down my way the other day, and a gentleman came up with 2 cans of Sprat, and everybody's saying, "What you gonna do with it?" But what did we eat when we were young? Not Sprat. We ate Sprat. What's wrong with that? Man, they used to fix that Sprat so nicely. Another thing is frying foods. We want to avoid that. But if you're frying, get a heavy skillet pot, an iron pot. When you fry with an iron pot, for some reason, that's my experience, it just doesn't take as much oil to fry that fish. That's my observation. So in other words, and then avoid deep frying. It's not good for you. So it depends on what you do with your food. Instead of frying the chicken, bake it.
Right.
Like I grew my children up and they ate French fries in moderate portions, but I never fried my French fries. I always push the French fries in the oven. So little changes like that can help us get where we are. But I noticed there's a nomenclature now with the fast food all over the place. And that barbecue is laden with sugar. We may want to consider enjoying it, but not as often.
Not as often.
Or maybe do it yourself where you know what you're putting in it.
I have a caller on the line, Miss Antoine. Classic, good morning, you're live. Hello, caller. Caller, good morning, you're live.
Yeah, hello, good night.
Yes, go ahead, please. Your question?
Good morning to your panelists. I want to find out something. I was diagnosed with COVID, and I used to be eating a lot of like fried stuff, like fried breadfruit and fried fish and this sort of stuff. But since I was diagnosed with the COVID,
it's a kid in my face, run them away.
I changed my whole diet. But right now I feel for nuts. I usually feel for nuts. You know, I does not use oil and these things. I just change up everything. Use more vegetables and all this sort of stuff. So I just trying to advise concerning with the nuts because I just most time feel for nuts. Thank you.
Ms. Adrian, she's highlighting the fact that the use of nuts as a diabetic, could that be should that be an added element to your dietary components? Nuts.
Very good choice. Very, very good choice as a snack. Again, watch your portions. You know, if you go overboard, nuts can raise your blood sugar. I can safely tell you that. That's one of the snacks my husband used, and I can tell you that. So again, portions. Okay? A good nighttime snack for a diabetic could be some nuts and maybe a glass of milk.
Okay.
Or some graham crackers or wheat crackers and a glass of milk. And again, in managing, you have to regulate the time you take your medication. You have to regulate the time you eat. You know, get into the habit of, I'm going to have breakfast between 6 and 8, between 8 and 10. I'm going to have my lunch between 12 and 2, instead of being all over the place. And be selective with your snacks. How about a slice of avocado as a snack versus some sweet biscuit? You know, we really have to avoid the sugary drinks. The sugary drinks, they are killers. The Coke, the Fanta, the Buster. And I'm a little disappointed that children get off the bus, and before they enter school, they look for the person selling next to the school, and they run and buy all these things. I think it's time, and I may be getting myself into trouble by saying this, I think it's time that all the vendors, whatever they sell within close proximity of the school, should be regulated. That's my take on it.
And let me ask you, it's important because we were going to segue into that, because you've always heard that there's need for a policy. Should there be a policy? Let's speak specifically to the children, because I've always wondered, for instance, you go to the preschools, and at the preschool level, you must say that there's a policy that's in place that discourages the use of candies and all of these snacks. But strangely, when they have a party, it's as though they decide, well, it's a party, it's a school party, so give them all the candies there is in the world to make up. Do you think that there's a need for a policy that governs what's imported, what's consumed, especially on the school compound, given, of course, the increasing occurrence of juvenile diabetes?
If I'm not mistaken, I think there is already a policy. How well it's implemented, I don't know. But I think the Grenada Food and Nutrition is very much up in the school system with meal regulation and so. How much they adhere to it, I don't know. But again, we have to learn to make changes. Yes, children can enjoy fruits. Children can enjoy a better snack during parties, even at home. Some parents don't even give their children juice right now. If you can't suck the fruit, you're not allowed to have juice. Why do we juice so much? I often wonder. I can answer the question. It tastes good. But then there's a backlash to that. Why don't we suck the fruit and taking all the fiber and all that can. So we pulp and we throw away all the fiber, and then we add sugar to an already sugar item, like fruits. I mean, fructose sugar is the better sugar. But what are we doing? We throwing out the bulb and we adding fine sugar to it. And this is where the problem comes in. And the other thing is children are not as active as before. Remember now, there's a big social shift in the sense that children are not running up and down the streets anymore playing patics and hopscotch. They are into social media and the phone.
And the devices.
So parents have to learn to keep their eye on their children and let them know that, I don't want to use the word we are in charge, but let them know that it shouldn't be like that. For the lack of a better word, I don't want to say in charge, because I don't want people to feel that children don't have right. And this is what is lacking now. Parents are just letting children have their own way, and they're not questioning, is it a good way? We have to dialogue with our children and let them know what's right and what's wrong. But we ourselves have to be the example and do the right thing. You know, one morning I was walking and a little boy said to me, "Miss, can I walk with you?"
Sure, why not? We continue. We've highlighted the fact, and I think it's going to be at the center of the conversation, that of management. How important is it, as part of that management process, planning in advance what I'm going to consume? You talked about timing. How important is the plan? So I'm deciding today's Tuesday, I'm going to go to the beach. When I come back, this is what I'm going to have, when I'm going to have it, so that it allows me to prepare and plan in advance, so I don't just randomly consume something when I feel a bit famished. How important is that?
But one thing we encourage persons with diabetes to do is never walk without a snack, especially you're on medication. It's likely that between 1 to 2 hours of taking your medication, your blood sugar will drop. So you're going to the beach, you walk with a snack. You plan on going to the beach, you may want to get up and have a full course of breakfast. You may want to pack a lunch, and you may want to have a snack in between. If you're just running down the road, again, that's the thing about just leaving the house. You may want to leave the house for 5 minutes, and you may end up leaving the house for 2 hours because of unforeseen circumstances. So we encourage persons with diabetes to always walk with a snack, even if it's 2 crackers in the pockets. So then when that low hits you, you can manage it. And another thing we tell them is, why wait till the low hits you? Meaning, why wait till your blood sugar drops before you have that snack? If you're on medication, it's likely that your blood sugar will drop within 2 hours of taking your medication. So before your body gets that jittery and that uncomfortable feeling,
right,
have a snack and choose your snack.
We have a caller on the line.
That's the key thing then.
Classic, good morning. Caller, you're live.
Yeah, good morning.
Yes, go ahead, please.
The lady is making a lot of sense. There is a problem in Grenada. Vegetables and fruits and vegetables are expensive. Small cabbage, $8, all kind of foolishness going on here. Now, what I've realized is that people have switched for the worse. You're getting rice and more rice every day, macaroni and more macaroni every day, and that is not helping us. We're in a lot of trouble in Grenada here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Ms. Sandy, excellent point the caller just made. People having to strike the balance, the economic divide, cost against what is available. And for most people, it comes down to, you know what? Not having sufficient disposable income, they tend to go for what's on the lower end of the food chain, which is not always the best choice.
Which is very unfortunate. because we caught between eating and paying our light bills, and we caught between buying the right thing and not having our water cut off. What can I say? I sympathize. But again, we have to ask ourselves, what do we really want? And as I said, rice is cheaper, pasta is cheaper, but the beans, the peas are also cheap. So the day you choose to eat some pasta, prepare some beans on the side. Beans are not expensive. Beans are not expensive. Some persons complain, I don't have land to plant anything. But do you know in a little area as wide as my hand here, you can plant a blugger tree,
right,
or a plantain tree, and before you know it, shoots. So sometimes it's the way we look at things. We can grow things in pots and help ourselves a little bit. But I understand the caller's concern, and it's very easy to go that way. But then you have to ask yourself, what do I really need for myself? Am I just looking for a belly full, or am I looking for a nutritious meal that would propel my healthy lifestyle? Again, as I said, I sympathize, but again, you have to go to the supermarket and look for stuff that's nutritious and inexpensive. And I keep emphasizing split peas. There's another chickpeas. These peas are very inexpensive. I find that pigeon peas is a bit expensive. And then if you do the macaroni, put some pumpkin in it. Pumpkin is very cheap. You see, sometimes we have a traditional way of doing things, like macaroni is always macaroni and cheese. But does it really have to be? You cannot okra the macaroni, and put a little olive oil in it, and you're okay. And if you do put a cheese, it doesn't have to be as much. Maybe with a glass of milk.
What about introducing vegetables to children at a much earlier age, and even more so, changing the way we present food to children? Do you see that as part of the challenge, in that we assume that it has to be done this way? So, for example, breadfruit. Instead of maybe just having it in oil dung, maybe a little breadfruit salad, change it up a bit, and when you're making the salad, add the little other ornaments, other stuff in it.
I quite agree. Sometimes we have to change the way we do things. Like you can make a breadfruit punch, and you may just want to make it, blend it, and use it as is, or you can add some milk to it. Bear in mind, though, I must say, for persons with diabetes, breadfruit is one of the fruits recognized as high in starch. So you have to be careful when you eat breadfruit. Breadfruit is high in starch. It can increase your glycemic index very easily, meaning that it can spike your blood sugar very easily. So enjoy your breadfruit, but don't overdo it as a diabetic with breadfruit. To answer your question with the children, yes, we need to find ways of fixing up the plate nicely. And again, we can do that by listening to them. Maybe get them involved in how we do stuff. They may have some ideas that we don't even know about. Maybe in a punch form, macaroni and cheese. But sometimes you can put, I keep focusing on pumpkin. You can blend pumpkin and put it between macaroni and cheese, and I don't think the children would observe that. They may not even recognize that.
Or you grate. So you can grate the carrots. Just grate the carrots into it.
Exactly.
Himself and carrot sticks became the best of friends. We seem for some reason to have lost Lady Sandy.
But with constant intervention, yes, it can change. What defines breakfast? That's another thing. Breakfast doesn't have to be the traditional bread and all that. We can change that. If you wake up in the morning and let me tell you something that's very nutritious that people don't make use of. Bay leaves. Bay leaves is laden with iron.
Right.
Put some milk in that bay leaf tea. Put some milk with that bay leaf tea, and you're good to go. The children may just enjoy that. Put some essence in it, and they may like it even better.
Right.
Ask them. Just get them involved and see what you find out.
Indeed, there's a lot that we've actually shared this morning. I'm just going to entertain this last caller that's on the line. Good morning, caller. You alive?
Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, sir.
A few years gone by, I wanted to say a couple, but people would have the idea that it's only two. Anyhow, a few years gone by, they used to teach domestic home economics, put it like that, sorry. This is the better word for me. Home economics in most of the primary schools. Now, I would include you all are setting it in secondary school and to pass exam, not to utilize it in the home, to pass exam. And this is what I think help people to have a vague idea about what they should eat. Because when you go to the secondary school and you come out, maybe you have little or no use because you might be working in a big job. So you have little or no use for cooking at your home because you have to run and to your big job. So this is what seems to be causing or helping to cause these we people, because I'm a diabetic too, to have this problem with diabetic. So I look at these things that we have to start teaching these things, the home economics, back in school instead of doing in T. Marisho College and all this sort of a high institute. So then people would utilize most of the local food. In fact, they used to give people food in school. Children used to be fed in school. So maybe they'll prepare a good menu for them in the school.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this caller, Ms. Antoine, was just literally amplifying what we stated initially, that we need to start the conversation at a much younger age. Change starts with, there must be a shift, a paradigm shift that starts with the younger generation. Before we wrap.
And we have to lay less emphasis on sugar. I mean, I was surprised when I went to Ghana, and throughout the entire trip, they serve you juice in that hotel with no sugar. They spice it up with ginger, and it tastes so good. So we have to make that shift. One advice I have to give persons with diabetes: you want to heal, you have to give up the sugary drinks. End of story. You have to give up the Coke, the Buster, the sugar cake. No one is saying you cannot enjoy a piece of sugar cake. But again, portions. You don't sit down and eat 3 and 4 and 5 of it. Maybe one is enough. But if you know you're going to consume that, maybe you may lessen on some of the starch in your food if you're having that. Let's say you decide to have some ice cream on a particular evening, and then we all have a craving for that. Yes, you'll have the ice cream, but eat a smaller portion of your starchy food that day, or eat a higher portion of vegetables on that day.
Right.
You know, or during that meal. So there are little modification we can do.
Indeed, there's little modifications that we can do. And it would surprise if you do not introduce your children, the taste for sugar is developed because we introduced it to them at an early age. If they're not used to sugar, they have no idea. And just before I have even a personal story. My son only got introduced to sugar when he was 5 years old, when he traveled, because he never was just used to sugar. And when they gave him milk or chocolate that was sweet, that was sweetened, he said he didn't want it because he was trying to figure out, his mind was trying to figure out, what is this? Because for him, he was not used to it. But then you travel, and after a while, he starts figuring, oh, okay, this doesn't taste bad. And then you always have to keep saying, But just before we go, though, Mr. Antoine, we talk about reducing on sugar, less juice. There are individuals, though, who probably they decide, I'm not having juice, I'm having tea. However, they're having 20 cups of tea per day, but each time they put in the added sugar to it. What would you say to them? What should be the plan?
It's all one and the same thing. You just shift him from what? It's the same consumption. So right. What's the point?
Leave it as it is.
Sense. It makes no sense. Let me say this. If you're trying to avoid something, like I tell my fellow co-workers, you can't tell somebody to just stop drinking juice.
Right.
You might want to ask, how many glasses of juice do you have in a day? They may say 4. And you would say, well, from tomorrow, why not make it 2?
Reduce on
and
it.
Set a goal. By the end of the month, you cut it down to 1.
And I guess all of that becomes part of the entire management process. I know, Miss Antoine. We literally we are out of time. We didn't make up for what we lost earlier on, but I do wish you all the best on the Diabetes Association as you continue on your drive to educate and inform people of the proper lifestyle changes that they need to make as you fight and you battle the disease. All the best.
And
to you.
There's one thing I just want to leave the public with. Take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself. Thank you. You do the same, and all the best to you. You can now retire to go.
Right.
Take care. Folks, this is where we end the conversation for now. We had some challenges with the connection, but we've made it through the hour. Continue to do what you have to do. The last word she left with you is take care of yourself. It's important that you do your best and take care of yourself. To the point, that's where we leave the conversation right now. As we move into the morning time, folks, 'tis the season to be jolly. I'm leaving Janelle in the studios, and I'm headed to the best place that there is. I'm going to go downtown. I'm going to get myself a nice little cup of coffee or something, and I'm going to bounce into the mall with my young, sprightly, youthful self while Janelle sits into the studio. Little John is going to be joining us in the studio today. I can promise you later on in the week, you know who's going to be here? Hess and the gang. So long, everybody. JC loves you. We leave the conversation now right here on To The Point.